Hello legends. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick and easy way to get started with using OpenAI agents within your n8n scenarios. So just to demo what we're going to be building, I've got a chat message received block over here, and it's plugged into an API call, which is targeting my Replit deployment of the OpenAI agent. But just to see here, so I'm going to say, hi there. I'm sending a static message into my agent. I'm getting a response. Hi, how can I assist you? So I've got this agent currently hooked up to web search and to file search. So it can search the web, and for file search, I've just uploaded some documents into an OpenAI vector database. So what is the weather in Melbourne? And we'll just wait for our response. So here we are. As of 4:50 local time, the Melbourne weather is this. Okay, and then what about for Sydney? So we actually have agent memory in here as well, because you would actually normally have to integrate some kind of memory function. Like if we're using the standard agents feature from n8n, you actually have to build in your own memory variable over here. But within this script, we manage the memory anyway. So I'm going to show you how that's done later on. So that's why when I say a very ambiguous what about Sydney over here, it understands that I'm speaking about what about the Sydney weather because of the memory in that actual agent. And then the final thing is for file search, what services are offered. And I've uploaded a really random FAQ from a made up automotive store. So I've uploaded some random services. That's why it's really disjointed for this demo. But yeah, what we're getting in here is web search and file search. So as you see, we're pretty much able to reconstruct this widget within our Replit script, which I am going to dive into in just a second. But as you see, we need an AI, like an LLM component. We need a memory component. Then we have a bunch of tool calls. So if we're looking at what this OpenAI agent is, it's essentially a response API, which gives us access to a bunch of different tool calls. And if I just flick across to here, so I'm in the agents documentation in the OpenAI docs. And for tools, I have over here. So we have function calling and file search, which are pretty standard tools. And this is what we're already familiar with. File search we're familiar with the from the Assistance API, which is the way of creating your own custom GPT and deploying it onto your website or integrating it into different workflows. The cool stuff that we get here is web search. So when you're in ChatGPT and you want to use web search to search up reviews of places or find locations or whatever, we can actually use this programmatically within the API. And we have computer use. So computer use in this video, I'm not going to go over because technically we're not going to be on an actual device able to use computer use. So we're really just using file search and web search, and function calling. I haven't done anything with that for this specific code, but you can copy the code from Replit and you can just use that as a starter code to build out your agents. Okay, so we have some more documentation here, but at a high level, I just want to explain what's going on. So we were just in n8n and we're sending messages through that chat interface, and the message is actually sent across to our Replit script, where it's broken down and then a response is generated, and then the response is sent back to the n8n agent, which is why we had that really neat I ask a question and I get a response back flow. So at a high level, this is our n8n workflow, which is what we just saw before. We're just sending a message in. We're appending that message into our API call that goes across to our Replit script. And then in Replit, we have just one script that manages the actual overview of to basically build a response and choose, are we using web search? Are we using file search? And then generating the response and sending it back to our n8n scenario. So at a high level, what we're actually doing within Replit is we're receiving a new message from n8n. We're sending that message to a router agent. And that router agent is just prompted up with natural language that says, hey, for questions about X and Y, use web search, or for questions about A and B, use file search. So in our example, the very first question we asked was actually web search, and then the final question we asked was actually file search. So let's say we go along this flow. When we're using file search, we generate our response, and then after we generate our response, we're actually sending it back down to our n8n agent. So let's go across to our Replit workflow and just see how this is built out. So over in Replit, I've got the deployment here, which I'm going to show you how you can actually just fork this. So just copy this across to your own Replit account within one click, and then deploy it and actually start using this for yourself. But at a high level, we're just doing a couple of things here. So for this first section of the app, we're just defining like our session memory. So the reason that we're able to actually have a continuous conversation with the previous messages all embedded within the actual one conversation is because we create a session memory variable over here. And then over here, we're defining some different tools that we're using. So web search and file search for our specific use case. I've got my vector store ID already hard coded into here. So I'm going to show you how to actually get your own vector store ID and how to create your own vector store later on in this video. But this is exactly how we get like our knowledge base attached to the agent. And then from here, we've got 3 separate agents that we're defining. So that's this section here. And the first agent that we're defining is the router agent. So like we had over here, this router agent actually receives the request and it's able to understand like, all right, what's the request that we're receiving and what do we need to do with it in order to answer it? Like, how do we progress through this? So we're just defining 2 different progression paths. One is the file search tool and one is the web search tool. So this is a very like beginner prompt that we can use for this router agent in general. And you can see here for file searches, for anything related to troubleshooting or company related information, flick across to the file search agent. And our file search agent is this one here. So vector search agent. And then we're giving instructions to like basically what to do and how to proceed. So we're defining the tool that we're using, which is the file search tool, and then to obtain the information from the file search tool. And then same thing if we're using the web search. So for our example, we were just doing like what's the weather in Melbourne and then in Sydney. So we're defining over here for any web search related queries, just use the web search tool or use the web search agent, and that's what we're doing over here. So we're giving the capacity for this agent to use the web search tool. So we're defining it over here and then giving some brief instructions. So really, if you're like, after you copy this for yourself and kind of have a play around with it, you can take this and just really beef up these prompts and the capability of whatever agent you build. But the idea of having separate agents in a router agent is, I don't think it's anything new. In fact, I think a lot of agent systems are built like this. So that's what we're doing over there. We're just defining all the stuff we're going to need for this app to run. And then over here, we have our main entry point for the question that we're sending from n8n. So whenever we interact with our agent, this message that we're receiving, that we're sending into here, it actually gets added into this API call. So if I open this up, I'm actually pointing this URL to the URL of my Replit deployment, and then I have this /ask here. So this is my development URL, and when you deploy this, I'm going to show you exactly how to plug it into your live URL so you can access this at any time. That's how simple the API call is here, just a post request to the URL for the Replit agent that we have. And we're sending 2 variables into here as well. So the first one is the question variable, which is just the question that the user is asking. And the second is the session ID variable. Now, session ID is automatically generated when you send a message into that chat trigger, so that first module. And the session ID is, it's already automatically generated and it's maintained within the entire session. So every time I send a new message into the agent, it uses the exact same session ID. And that's why this session ID, because it's consistent between actual chat, like when we actually have a chat, it's the exact same for the entire conversation. That's how we maintain the memory within our Replit script. So as we see here, we're actually using this endpoint. So that message we get from n8n, we're literally plunking it right into here using the post method as what we needed. And we're able to pull out those, like the data from that API call. So just to be super clear, over here in this HTTP call, we send a question and a session ID. And over here, we're pulling out our user question and the session ID. And then the session ID is actually used to create that persistent memory for that single chat session. And then we're taking the question and we're basically running it through our process where we're sending it to the router agent and the router agent's deciding what we do. Actually, in this process as well, we're always defaulting back to the router agent. So let's say we choose the router agent and they create a response for like a knowledge-based response or a web search response. The next question that we send comes directly back to that router agent. So in here, you might actually define all of your tools, like all the different things you need done. So you might have a workflow for plugging into Shopify to view your order information and pull out tracking information for customers. You might have multi-step flows where after you get the tracking information, you actually use a tracking API to get the latest update to where that order is, as an example. So after we do that, we basically run that process, we get our response, and then in the response that we're sending back to that API call, so in the API response, we're sending back our session ID just so we can actually just manually see it, but it doesn't do anything for us for this instance. We send back the user question, and we send that back the text response, to our initial input question. So this package of information We can use it for, I don't know, like if you wanted to maintain memory within your n8n scenario and you wanted to log every conversation into a Google Sheets, for example, then this is where this specific response might become useful for you, because now you have your session ID identifier, you have your question, and then the actual response, and you can kind of log the entire session in a Google Sheets, but we're not going to do that right now. What we're most interested in is actually this text response. Now note that we put text over here, and if we use something like response, what actually happens is when we're displaying the response back from that HTTP call, the response comes back as a JSON key value pair, like a JSON object. So it's got response ... and then it gives you, hi, I'm just an agent, how can I help? So that's why I'm using text over here, because when it comes through from our n8n scenario, whoops, that's why we don't need any additional step over here to like parse this response and to display it correctly. That's why it literally comes up ready to go. So just in this system, right, to kind of explain how you might evolve this, like we're using this for a chat message, a chat triggered message. You can use this, the beginning of the workflow, to be like an email support agent. So anything that comes in from emails, or anything that comes in from your social channels, or any regular workflow that you want to implement like an agent into, you can actually just basically plug it in on the left-hand side and run it through your agent here. And then within your agent, so within Replit, you would just have your prompting set up to be like, hey, you're an email support agent. When you're responding, make sure that you're using HTML tags and you use this X, Y, and Z structure. But yeah, that's where you would basically control the actual output of what you're looking to achieve, and then the input is coming on this left-hand side. So yeah, like I mentioned before, this is kind of like replacing the need for this. I don't personally know exactly what use case I would use either for right now. I think for web search, it's pretty interesting, but you probably have other API tools that you can get that. So maybe the fact that the web search is integrated into here just makes that total experience better. But now let's look at how you would actually deploy this. So we already looked at this n8n scenario. I'm not gonna include it for you. But really all you need to do is just copy this API call, and I'm going to show you what URL to put into here. So it's just a post method. You're sending a JSON body with a question and a session ID. To trigger that, you just send a message into here, and after you send the message into here, you get access to some of these variables. So session ID and action is actually by default included in this trigger, so you don't have to add any of these variables. And chat input is just exactly what you've sent. So you're just dragging across these variables. So chat input comes into here, and then your session ID is dragged and dropped into here. Just make sure that you're using the exact same names as what I have here, session ID and question. Now for Replit, I'm gonna make this publicly accessible. So since it's publicly accessible, all you need to do, I'm gonna have this link in the description of this video. Just take that link and paste it into your browser. You have to have a Replit account already created. And if you want to deploy this to be live, so a production environment, I think you also have to pay for Replit as well. So you have to create an account for like 25 bucks. I'm going to include my Replit URL. So if you sign up and you don't have Replit already, feel free to use my URL to sign up. So I'm going to call this demo remix app. And now this is going to pull out the exact Replit app that we were using for this initial demo as a new deployment into your own Replit. So all you need to do to get this running in a testing environment, you just got to hit run. So you're going to have the exact same setup as what I had before. You're going to have the exact same prompts. Actually, the only thing that you do need to do is change your environment variable, because this API key, I'm going to remove it from my, my account. But you need to plug in your API key in order to use this. And then in our code, I kind of jumped the gun before, but you need to change your a vector store ID so you can actually use your own file search. So actually, let's just do this now. So let's go across to platform.openai.com. I'm going to go into this settings button over here. I'm going to go to API keys. And if I create a new secret key, I'm going to call this agent demo. Copy this, hit done. And back in Replit, I'm just going to backspace all this and just paste the key in here. No need for any other marks like quotation marks or whatever. This API key is now valid. And then the next thing we need to do is go across to our dashboard. And if we go to storage, and let's say go into a vector store, so you want to have like a collection of files, like a collection of PDF resources that you want to upload and have it as like a customer support agent, or you want to upload any other files into here. You essentially just go to create, and you will create your new vector store. Let's call this agent demo. And you would upload some files into here just by clicking this add files button. And let's say after you upload your files, you're going to copy this file ID over here. So I'm just zooming across just to show you how to set it up from a basic point of view. And let's paste it into here. So backspace just to see, and it's all brand new. And let me just stop this and rerun this now. Okay, so we've updated our API key. We've updated the vector store technically because nothing is included in that vector store. We're not going to be able to do any file searching. But then you copy this URL and across in your n8n scenario, which is over here, you go to your API call. And what we need to do is we want to make sure that we have the /ask endpoint appended to the end of the URL. So I'm going to paste in the new URL. And as long as I have one single / here and then ask, I want to be able to interact with that agent. So I'm just going to get out here. And where are we? We're on this agent, the demo agent. So I'm going to go, oops, let's actually just reset this. Cool, let's get a brand new chat. Hi there. And now we're interacting with that brand new agent. What services are provided? It might actually hallucinate and make something up. We don't have any files uploaded, so we're not going to get, we should get nothing back or something complete BS back. So let's see what happens. Okay, I couldn't find any specific details about this from the files that were uploaded, basically because we have no files uploaded. But you see how easy that was to get set up and running. And then from here, the main script that we want to be editing is this main.py. So the main.py, like I ran you through before, is the is your agent, is exactly how you would build out, just using this singular script. So you can take this and copy this entire thing and plug it into ChatGPT. Maybe give it a bit of context for what the agent is. And I'm going to link this resource as well, but this is the entire documentation for the Agents SDK. And this is in Python right now, and that script is in Python as well. So if you want to add more tools, if you want to increase the functionality, you can just get that script that we had, plug it into ChatGPT, and let's say you want to add a new tool for like a function call tool. You might just copy and paste this entire page into the ChatGPT context as well, and just kind of like, for example, here we have function tool, and just say, hey, can you create a function tool that does X, Y, and Z for you as well? And then it's easy enough to just paste that back into your script. So I've got too many pages open right now, but you paste it back into your script into here. For deployment, since we're just using this locally deployed, this run button is able to give us like an environment for testing. But what you do if you want to make this live for yourself, go across to the deploy, use the default settings, and we're just going to be clicking deploy. And you see this is a new URL that we'll be using. So technically you would actually just get this URL and you would copy all of this. And once this is deployed already and actually deployed live on your Replit environment, to make this live for your agent, you would just come into here. And once again, you would just backspace all this and you would paste in that URL. And there's a couple of spaces here and /ask. The /ask it's like this ask bit is never going to be at the end of your URL. The reason that it's there is because we've built it in ourselves. So if I go to this main.py, this is the entry point that we're defining for those questions. That's why we have to have /ask, because we're basically saying, hey, get that question and then plonk it right into here. And then the function picks up that question and basically generates the response. Okay, guys, I hope this video was insightful and probably a little bit interesting and exciting for you. If you want to see more videos about building out more comprehensive AI agents, or if you want a hand implementing an OpenAI agent into your workflow, just give me a shout. I'm going to leave my email in the description of this video. All right, thanks, guys. See ya.